There are many countries on the planet with controversial realities, but probably none like this one. A country considered by many to be the richest in natural resources in the world, with the most beautiful women, but with such a huge social crisis that the local currency has become worth less than the paper it is made of. In this new video from Uncensored World, we will learn more about Venezuela, one of the most beautiful and extreme, yet fascinating countries on the planet. Venezuela, the country with the largest oil reserves on Earth, the place with the most gold in America, and the fourth largest in natural gas globally. A region of such extreme beauty that it contains the tallest and most dazzling waterfall in existence. With a history at its origin that will surely surprise you, mountains untouched since prehistoric times, and jungles like the Amazon, where even today there are tribes that live without contact with the outside world and without wearing clothes. A place full of unique curiosities, such as having won more beauty contests than any other country, a beauty that has become a true national pride, to the point that the government itself provides aid for beauty courses, and even for cosmetic improvements such as rhinoplasty and breast augmentation. A natural and cultural beauty unique in the world, that contrasts with the problems of its inhabitants, due to the fact that such enormous wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, who claim to act in honor of the motherland, while making decisions that change the destiny of millions without being accountable to anyone. This contradiction is also reflected in a tiny and terrifying animal, capable of penetrating men's private parts and causing one of the most unbearable pains imaginable. These present-day realities bear a striking resemblance to the country's past, as it was here that, centuries ago, European settlers discovered the cannibal men. Pay attention, and don't miss this video, because discovering Venezuela with us will surprise you more than you can imagine. Let's get started. Immersed in the densest and most impenetrable jungle on the planet, in the heart of Latin America, lies Venezuela, a natural treasure so extreme that it is not only considered by many to be the richest country in the world in terms of resources, but also possesses such extraordinary beauty that it takes the breath away from those lucky enough to discover it. Venezuela is located in northern South America, bordered to the north by the Caribbean Sea, to the east by Guyana, to the south by Brazil, and to the west by Colombia. Its size and geographical diversity make it a unique country. From the jungles of the Amazon, the vast savannas of the Gran Sabana, the Andean mountains of Merida, the Caribbean coast, to the deserts of Médanos de Coro. Venezuela is among the most biodiverse countries on the planet, with thousands of species of flora and fauna, many of them endemic. Among its animal treasures are the capybara, the world's largest rodent, which can exceed 60 kilograms, and impressive reptiles such as the green anaconda, the largest snake on the planet, which can reach up to 12 meters in length. It is also home to unique species of birds, amphibians, and fish that are only found in its rivers and jungles. From the majestic scarlet macaw to small bright frogs in the tepuis, Venezuela's fauna combines size, color, and rarity in a spectacle that is unmatched anywhere else on the planet. Its population exceeds 30 million inhabitants, although most are concentrated in cities such as Caracas, Maracaibo, Valencia, and Barquisimeto. Meanwhile, the dense jungles of the Amazon remain largely untouched and unexplored, home to tribes that still have very limited contact with the outside world. Venezuela's natural wealth is dazzling. Its mountains, rivers, and waterfalls seem to come from another planet. Among them, the Angel Falls stands out, the highest waterfall in the world, whose majesty perplexes everyone who is lucky enough to see it. And the origin of its name hides a story of epic adventure that will surely surprise you when you learn about it in a few minutes. But it is not only beauty that defines this country and its wealth, as Venezuela is a powerhouse of natural resources in the world, a place whose abundance could have ensured prosperity for generations. Its wealth in oil, gas, and minerals makes it a country with almost unparalleled economic potential. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet, a fact that has placed it at the center of the global economy since the early 20th century. The first modern oil discovery dates back to 1914. For decades, oil made Venezuela a prosperous country. Oil revenues allowed its citizens to enjoy an enviable standard of living, with infrastructure, education, and services that only a few developed countries in the world enjoyed. But everything would change over time, even though Venezuela's wealth is not limited to oil alone. The country has the largest gold reserves in the Americas, an abundance that dates back to colonial times, when Spanish conquistadors arrived in search of treasure. In addition, Venezuela is also the fourth largest natural gas producer in the world, another resource that could have ensured decades of energy and economic prosperity. However, the country's potential was conditioned by history, politics, and the concentration of wealth. To understand this better, it is necessary to know its past, from the original tribes to the arrival of European colonizers and the current rulers. Before the arrival of Christopher Columbus and his expeditions, Venezuela was inhabited by various indigenous tribes, such as the Caribs, Pemons, Yanomamis, and Wayu, who lived off fishing, hunting, and agriculture, and had a deep respect for nature. These societies had such fascinating and unique ways of life that they are surprising even by our modern standards. The Caribs, for example, gave rise to the term we now know as cannibals. This is all due to the accounts of European explorers who came to these lands and encountered these tribes. In their chronicles, they described war rituals in which defeated enemies were treated symbolically, leading Europeans to believe that their flesh was consumed. However, there is no evidence that this actually happened. Most likely, these were symbolic and ceremonial practices designed to instill fear and reinforce community cohesion, ensuring their survival in the face of external threats. Far from being merely macabre, these traditions reflected the strength, strategy, and determination of these communities to protect their territory and their people, leaving a mark that still fascinates and arouses mystery in those who study the past of these societies. Today, some indigenous Venezuelan societies, such as the Yanomami, continue to live as they did centuries ago, surrounded by nature, hidden in the depths of the Amazon rainforest. They maintain traditions that may be controversial to those living in urban environments, such as polygamy, maintaining communities in which one man has several wives, or the fact of living without clothes in certain situations as part of their connection to the land and their community rituals. These practices are part of a deep social and cultural system, where survival, family, and spirituality merge in a way that we have probably lost in modern societies. In addition, these tribes have developed surprising knowledge of natural medicine, river navigation, and initiation rites, demonstrating that cultural diversity and adaptation to the environment can be as extraordinary as the fauna and geography of Venezuela itself. These geographical difficulties were encountered in 1498 by Christopher Columbus, when he arrived on the Venezuelan coast during his third voyage to the New World. Despite this, the first Spanish settlements soon began to establish themselves, attracted mainly by gold and cocoa, resources that were already recognized as valuable. The origin of the country's name is closely linked to its colonial past. It was Amerigo Vespucci, the explorer who gave his name to the American continent, who, upon observing the indigenous stilt houses on Lake Maracaibo, houses suspended over the water, was reminded of the Italian city of Venice, famous for its canals. Inspired by this similarity, he decided to call these lands Venezuela, which literally means Little Venice. Although Europeans were already searching for gold, cocoa, and other resources, the true extent of the country's wealth was only discovered centuries later, when oil exploitation began to transform the Venezuelan economy and society. Spanish is the main language due to this past, but more than 30 indigenous languages still survive in the country, reflecting its cultural and ethnic diversity. Racial mixing has also given rise to what many consider one of the most beautiful populations on the planet, especially in terms of its women, who have won numerous international beauty contests. But before talking about beauty and culture, it is important to continue with its recent history to understand why so much wealth has not meant prosperity for all. Since, although Venezuela could have been one of the richest countries on the planet, the concentration of power and decisions by those in power have greatly limited this potential. As we mentioned, for much of the 20th century, Venezuela was a rich country in every respect, and so were its inhabitants, since after the discovery and exploitation of oil, Venezuela experienced years of relative stability and prosperity. Its citizens enjoyed education, healthcare, and a standard of living that many countries envied. However, at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, the arrival of certain leaders and their control of resources began to transform the economy. Recent governments have implemented policies that have radically changed the economy, generating hyperinflation and shortages that directly affect the daily lives of millions of Venezuelans. Today, although Venezuela remains one of the richest nations in natural resources on the planet, the majority of its population faces often extreme economic and social difficulties, while abundance remains concentrated in a few hands. To better understand this reality, it is helpful to understand what hyperinflation is and what it entails with a real-life example. Inflation is the widespread and sustained increase in the prices of goods and services in a country. But when this increase accelerates uncontrollably, we speak of hyperinflation, a phenomenon capable of destroying the purchasing power of the population in months or even weeks. In Venezuela, hyperinflation began to accelerate in the 21st century when the government implemented price control policies and massively increased the issuance of money to cover growing public spending. What happened was that the amount of money in circulation grew much faster than the production of goods and services, causing prices to rise at rates that were impossible to keep up with. To understand this better, imagine this. What could previously be bought with 1 bolivar now required thousands of bolivars. The exchange rate with the dollar, for example, suffered a huge drop. At one time, $1 was equivalent to 4 bolivars, while at the worst point of inflation, $1 could be worth more than 1,000,000 bolivars. The result of hyperinflation was devastating, leading to situations such as people literally needing suitcases full of bills to buy a loaf of bread, or to drastic price changes such as bread that cost 10 bolivars one day could cost 10,000 the next day, and the following month, millions of bolivars were needed. Hyperinflation did not only affect food prices. Everything from transportation to electricity began to rise at breakneck speeds. Citizens who could previously cover their basic needs with their monthly salary soon discovered that their wages were no longer enough to cover bread and milk. To better understand this, the current official exchange rate in Venezuela is approximately 146 bolivars per dollar, according to the Central Bank of Venezuela. However, the minimum monthly wage remains at 130 bolivars, a figure similar to that of decades ago, when $1 was equivalent to 4 bolivars. This means that, at the current exchange rate, the minimum wage is equivalent to less than $1 per month. This huge disparity reflects the aftermath of years of economic crisis, in which inflation and devaluation have drastically eroded the purchasing power of the population. Because of this, a worker who receives the monthly minimum wage in Venezuela of 130 bolivars can only afford a fraction of basic goods, such as food or medicine, without additional income. Hyperinflation also affected the way people perceive money, as saving local currency became meaningless, and many began to save in dollars, euros, or even durable goods such as non-perishable food and appliances, which held their value better. Transportation also became an economic challenge. A ticket that used to cost a few bolivars could require thousands or millions over the months, forcing citizens to walk long distances or share rides to reduce expenses. The paradox of living in a country so rich in resources became increasingly evident. While Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on the planet, abundant gold, and enough natural gas to supply large regions, daily life became unreasonably expensive. A clear example is the price of gasoline compared to basic goods. For years, and even today in some cases, a bottle of water could cost more than filling a gas tank, a situation that seems impossible anywhere else in the world. Businesses were forced to adjust their prices several times a day. Low-denomination bills became useless, and a parallel market for foreign currencies and bartering emerged, keeping the economy functioning in an improvised manner. Education also suffered. Schools and universities, especially public ones, faced shortages of materials, staff cuts, and difficulties in maintaining infrastructure. Many young people saw their opportunities to study and access job opportunities limited. The healthcare system partially collapsed, with hospitals lacking essential medicines, equipment, and sufficient staff. This led citizens to turn to private solutions or community support networks to survive diseases that were previously controllable. Despite all these difficulties, creativity and solidarity have allowed millions of Venezuelans to keep going. The adaptation to hyperinflation and the resilience of Venezuelans is extraordinary. Many turned to the internet and social media to generate income, to freelance work, network marketing, or taking advantage of currency exchange as a means of survival. Others sought alternatives in cryptocurrencies, remittances from family members, or bartering within their communities. All of this is happening in a country that, given its potential, could be one of the most prosperous on the planet. The paradox of Venezuela illustrates how resource wealth does not always translate into well-being for its citizens. While abundance exists in the land, oil, gold, and gas, daily life is becoming dramatically more expensive, and the economy is becoming a constant challenge. Much of Venezuela's current economic situation is due to a combination of internal and external factors. On the one hand, international restrictions and sanctions have limited the country's ability to export resources and acquire essential products, affecting the availability of goods on the market and creating shortages. On the other hand, resource management and internal political decisions have also influenced the distribution of wealth. The concentration of resources in the hands of certain groups and the lack of effective control mechanisms have meant that a large part of the population does not perceive the benefits of the country's abundant resources. This combination of external and internal factors explains why, despite being a country extremely rich in oil, minerals, and biodiversity, Venezuelans face daily economic difficulties that make this country one of the most challenging places in the world. It is a country of extremes that often border on the unbelievable, since here, despite the extreme difficulties faced by the population, the government not only subsidizes beauty courses for women, but also helps them with subsidies for surgeries such as rhinoplasty or breast augmentation. This surprising reality has a lot to do with the fact that this country is considered the place with the most beautiful women on the planet. Venezuela is recognized worldwide for having won more beauty contests than any other country in the world. It has won a total of 24 titles in the 4 most important competitions: 7 in Miss Universe, 6 in Miss World, 9 in Miss International, and 2 in Miss Earth. This success is attributed to a combination of factors, such as the country's racial and cultural diversity, the personal care of its inhabitants, and the influence of its warm climate and paradisiacal landscapes. And to maintain this leading position, the country has implemented policies that support training in modeling, aesthetics, and plastic surgery, to the point that the government itself has subsidized beauty courses and surgical procedures, including rhinoplasty and breast augmentation, with the aim of promoting beauty as a national value. These initiatives have been part of an effort to consolidate Venezuela's image as the nation with the most beautiful women on the planet. However, this obsession with beauty has generated much controversy and debate, since, despite the economic difficulties facing the country, many women have resorted to these subsidies, causing some people in this country to value physical appearance above general well-being. Instead of addressing issues such as poverty or education, it seems that some leaders have prioritized aesthetics as a way to project a positive image of the country. This is a surprising reality, considering that while many Venezuelans cannot afford to study or eat properly, others have access to aid to change their physical appearance. Venezuela is known for having one of the highest rates of cosmetic surgery per capita in the world, especially breast augmentation procedures. It is estimated that in recent years, breast augmentation procedures in this country have exceeded 85,000 per year. In Venezuela, cosmetic surgery, particularly breast augmentation, has become a common practice and, in many cases, a family tradition. It is common for mothers to advise their daughters to undergo such procedures as a way to improve their appearance and, with it, their opportunities in social and professional life. This phenomenon has been described by some as a rite of passage in Venezuelan society. This seems nonsensical when viewed from another perspective and taking into account the poverty and difficulties of Venezuelan society. Although it makes sense when one understands that the government provides subsidies and that all this offers young Venezuelan women opportunities to enjoy a better life in the future. A reality of beauty, which we will explore in more depth in this video, as the story of the discovery of the highest and most beautiful natural waterfall on the planet has to do with an epic adventure in human history that we are now going to learn about. But before that, we would like to ask you, would you undergo subsidized surgery, as in Venezuela? What do you think about it and the beauty of its women? Do you think the reality of life in Venezuela is nonsense? What would you do to change things? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support Uncensored World, so that we can continue working to bring you interesting content like this every week. So thank you. And now let's learn about one of the most epic adventure stories, although also one of the least known in the world. A story that has a lot to do with the beauty of Venezuela and its most famous natural waterfall, Angel Falls. The highest waterfall in the world, so high that before reaching the ground, part of the water turns into mist. Probably when you hear the name Salto Angel, your first thought is that it is named for religious reasons, or perhaps because of some ancient story related to colonization. It sounds logical, right? After all, Angel evokes heavens, divinities, legends, or realities related to Spain or the language of Venezuela, but nothing could be further from the truth. And as you will now see, the real story is much more surprising. It was the 1930s when an American pilot named Jimmy Angel was flying through the skies of southern Venezuela. Jimmy was not looking for angels or saints, and his surname was pronounced in English, not Spanish. He was looking for gold. Yes, although his surname would later give its name to this unparalleled natural treasure, Jimmy was only looking for gold lost in the jungle and hidden among the imposing tepuis, those enormous tabletop mountains so mythical in Venezuela that they seem to come from another world. The tepuis are enormous rocky plateaus with vertical walls and flat tops that rise like islands suspended above the Venezuelan jungle. Even more so because part of them often hangs above the clouds. These geological formations, unique in the world, have remained virtually untouched for millions of years due to their difficult access, creating isolated ecosystems found nowhere else. Their almost supernatural appearance and total isolation make them mysterious and fascinating places, worthy of legends and adventurous explorations, such as the one Jimmy Angel found himself immersed in. One day, while flying over the Venezuelan Gran Sabana, the name given to this region of plateaus and tepui that look like something from another planet, he saw something that took his breath away. From the top of the tepui known as Ollantepui, an entire river plunged into the void in a leap that seemed to touch the sky but never reached the ground. Fascinated, Jimmy decided to land his plane on top of this imposing mountain. And here comes the twist that no one expected. His landing was a disaster. The plane got stuck in the mud, stranded on top of this seemingly inaccessible tepui. That's how what seemed like a glorious discovery turned into a natural trap for him. Jimmy, his wife, and 2 companions were trapped for 11 days at an altitude of hundreds of meters, battling jungles, swamps, and cliffs, not knowing if they would ever make it back. But they finally managed to descend and tell of the wonders they had discovered. And that is how what seemed like it would end in tragedy became a legend that would later impress the entire world. The story spread as the days passed, and that is how the highest natural waterfall on the planet came to be named Jimmy Angel. And not because he was religious or mystical. The name of the most beautiful and enormous waterfall on the planet has nothing to do with heavenly angels. It simply honors the man who, almost by accident, made it known to the world. Although Jimmy never found the gold he was looking for, he unwittingly gave the world a much greater and more eternal treasure. The Angel's Leap, the highest waterfall on the planet, a drop of almost a kilometer, 976 meters from the top of Ollantaytambo. For the indigenous Pamon people, of course, this waterfall already had a name. They called it Karapakupai Meru, the jump from the deepest place, a reminder that nature holds secrets that even gold cannot buy. Enjoying Angel Falls is not easy, just as it was not for the hero of this story. Getting there requires days of travel through dense jungles, winding rivers, and rugged terrain. But the effort is certainly worth it, as the waterfall is a natural wonder that seems unreal. The height is such that, upon reaching the ground, the water seems to vanish into the air before touching the earth, enveloping the landscape in a veil of mist that looks like something out of a dream. If you enjoyed this story, give us a like so we can continue exploring and creating videos like this every week. And don't forget to subscribe to Uncensored World to discover secrets and wonders of the world like you've never seen them before. Thank you. But the adventure in Venezuela doesn't end here. Another jewel of the Venezuelan Gran Sabana is Monte Roraima, a majestic tepui, like the Ollantaytambo, which rises like an island above the sky. This plateau is so amazing that it inspired the writer Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, to write The Lost World. In his novel, he recounts how part of the South American plateau is still inhabited by prehistoric creatures, and some locals believe that this story could have a grain of truth. When you look at Mount Roraima from the sky, you understand why these formations inspire fantasy stories. The tepuis of the Venezuelan Gran Sabana look like real floating islands as their peaks rise above the clouds, and those lucky enough to observe them from above can probably enjoy one of the most beautiful natural landscapes on the planet. Venezuela's nature is as unique as its tepuis and its majestic waterfalls that seem to spring from the sky. And perhaps that is why this country is home to a natural phenomenon unmatched anywhere else on the planet. An eternal lightning bolt that illuminates the sky night after night, year after year. This is the Catatumbo lightning in Lake Maracaibo, a spectacle that defies the logic of meteorology. In this place, thunderstorms occur almost every night of the year, lasting for hours, and most surprisingly, often without loud thunder, just lightning that paints the sky blue and white. This phenomenon can be seen from hundreds of kilometers away, making it an impressive spectacle for locals, tourists, and scientists alike. NASA has recognized it as the world epicenter of thunderstorms, with an average of 300 storms per year and a total of 1,600,000 lightning strikes annually. Venezuelans know it as another of their natural treasures, a display of light that inspires legends and admiration, especially during the rainy season, from November to April. But perhaps even stranger than the Catatumbo lightning is discovering a ghost skyscraper in the middle of Caracas, a place that looks like something out of a dystopian movie. This is the Torre de David, the tallest unoccupied office tower in the world. Originally planned as a symbol of modernity and progress, the construction was left unfinished and abandoned until thousands of families occupied it, turning it into a true vertical city. There, entire floors function as homes, shops, and community spaces, creating a unique urban phenomenon, a tower that combines modern architecture with social improvisation, strikingly reflecting the contradictions of life in Venezuela. We are coming to the end of this journey, through one of the most incredible countries on the planet. And as we think about its landscapes and natural treasures, we encounter a reality that is extraordinary and terrifying for many. One of the animals most feared by many, a small fish known as the candiru. This tiny fish, which inhabits the Amazonian rivers of Venezuela and Brazil, has the ability to cause one of the most intense pains in the world. The reason is that it is attracted to the urea present in urine. This means that if a man urinates directly into these waters, the candiru may be attracted to the stream of urine and even try to enter the urethra. In other words, it may enter the male genital tract. The pain it causes is sharp and stinging, caused by the mechanical irritation of its spines and the pressure exerted by the fish as it tries to enter. For this reason, many locals and visitors know to take precautions. They avoid urinating directly into the rivers where this fish lives, or cover their private parts while in the water. Removing a candiru is not easy and requires immediate medical attention, because any delay can cause serious complications. Although cases are extremely rare, the fame of this fish has created an almost legendary respect among those who inhabit and explore the Amazonian waters. With that in mind, would you dare to bathe in these waters? It will be great to read your comments, thank you. This small but fearsome animal reminds us that, in a country full of wonders, there are also unique creatures that demand respect and caution. Another creature that is sure to cause panic when discovered, especially if you are unfamiliar with it, is the capybara, the largest rodent on the planet. Endemic to several regions of Venezuela and much of South America, it can reach over 1 meter in height and weigh up to 60 kilograms. Its size and imposing appearance can frighten those who see it for the first time, as it resembles a giant rat, although it is completely herbivorous and peaceful. With its dangers, oddities, and incredible natural beauty, its cultural richness, and the fascinating history of the country and its people, Venezuela is a unique spectacle of nature that you will probably want to discover in more detail. That's why at Uncensored World, we've done extensive research to explain how to get there and enjoy this magical country. If you're traveling from the Americas, there are direct flights to Caracas and other major cities from countries such as the United States, Brazil, and Colombia. From Europe, the most common option is to fly via Madrid or Amsterdam, with connections to Maiquetía International Airport, near Caracas. Once in Venezuela, getting around is relatively easy thanks to a network of domestic flights and buses between major cities. To explore remote regions, such as the Gran Sabana or the Tepuis, it is most common to combine ground transportation with local flights to small airstrips near the natural parks. Venezuela is one of the cheapest countries in the world for visitors using US dollars or euros, due to the hyperinflation it has experienced, although it is always advisable to check the current exchange rate. For example, a simple meal for two can cost around $10, and a night in a basic hotel can be around $20, depending on the location and season. For excursions to iconic places such as Angel Falls, there are organized tours that include small plane flights from Canaima, local guides, and accommodation in camps or lodges. These tours allow you to fly over the Tepuis and get close to the highest waterfall on the planet, enjoying spectacular views and the surrounding jungle. If you are interested in learning about indigenous tribes, such as the Waorani or the Yanomami, there are also excursions guided by local experts. These trips include safe jungle hikes, cultural visits, and learning about traditional customs, always respecting the privacy and way of life of the communities. It is important to note that, despite all its wonders, Venezuela can be a dangerous country in certain respects. Social differences, extreme living conditions in remote regions, and insecurity in some cities require caution. Travel with guides, find out about safe areas, and avoid traveling at night or in isolated areas. From Uncensored World, we hope that the situation in Venezuela will change soon, and that life will become more just, especially in a country so rich in resources and culture. The resilience of Venezuelans is remarkable, and many examples show that, even in the midst of adversity, creativity and human capacity can make a difference. As you have seen, exploring Venezuela is an experience of contrasts, landscapes that seem like another planet, ancient cultures and unique traditions, along with a social reality that challenges visitors to reflect on inequality, survival, and resilience. Venezuela teaches us that a country can be magical and challenging, dangerous and generous, harsh and full of hope all at the same time. At Uncensored World, we will continue to explore every week to show you the magic that you can find in this world like nowhere else. Places like the one you can now see in this video. Click on it, you're going to enjoy it.